The Retirement Café Podcast, episode 33, Buy a Vineyard to Save Inheritance Tax, and other news from the world of finance.
Retired or thinking about retirement? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Retirement Café Podcast. In each episode, we bring you an important conversation with insight, tips and knowledge, all designed to help you live a fulfilling and successful life in retirement. Here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner and accredited later life advisor, Justin King.
Welcome to the Retirement Café, episode 33. This week, I want to bring you up to speed with some things going on in the financial world. Now, I know as retirees, you're all interested in making the best of your money, so I thought I'd spend an episode of this wonderful podcast talking to you about some money issues. One of the first things I want to talk to you about is the collapse of a peer-to-peer lender called Lendy. Peer-to-peer platforms offer loans to small firms using cash gained from, vested from investors, and they expect higher returns. Now, I've just been having a look at the lendy.co.uk website and just to see what happened. So, Lendy collapsed into administration with £160 million in outstanding loans and with more than 90 million in default. And they'd spent the last 6 months on the FCA's watch list. So the FCA are now launching a probe into the specifics of the crash and are bringing in new rules for the whole of the industry to impose stricter requirements. Just having a look at the website, and it's there's a still up there, lendy.co.uk, and it says, our investors talk about their experience of investing with us. You know exactly where you stand all of the time. You can just sit back and relax and watch every month for your money to accumulate, which is the bit I like about it. The best bit I like about it, that's from Jerry Haynes, an investor. I love the ability to control exactly where my money's gone, invest in different projects and get great return on my money. These websites are really not telling everything about the risks that people are going to, are putting with their money. And this has now gone bust. And they also go, if you click on the link saying, what return can I expect? You will begin earning up to 12% annual interest to your capital immediately, depending on the project that you have invested in. This is really tough. If these investing returns are out there, then if they're, 12% against what you're getting in the bank, you've got to realise that there's significant capital at risk here, and you've got to be really concerned. The FCA have now said that platforms must ensure they only market to retail clients. That's kind of probably you, if you're listening to this, who are self-certified or certified as sophisticated investors or as high net worth investors. They've got to confirm before a promotion is made in relation to the investment promoted they will receive regulated investment advice or investment management services from an authorised person. So that's someone like me. The problem is, the reason why I've never recommended a peer-to-peer lender is that I haven't got a clue how I can do the due diligence on them. How can I really check who they're lending to, how they're lending, what they're really doing? I just don't have the time and the knowledge and the expertise to do that. And I would much rather be in plain vanilla types of investments, which are still volatile, but seem to be quite a lot more cautious than these types of things. So yeah, peer-to-peer lending, that's the first thing I'd like you to all to be aware of. The next thing I want to talk to you about is overdrafts and why that could have an impact on you. In retirement, I hope you're possibly not running an overdraft, but it could be the end of free banking in the UK, as you may have to pay a monthly fee to keep your current account open. The regulator, again the FCA, has announced a series of major reforms to the overdraft market that consumer rights champions say will stamp out hideous charges designed to entrap people in debt. Banks and building societies are going to be prohibited from charging customers fees for borrowing money using an unplanned, or what we used to call unauthorised overdraft. So it could become the norm for institutions to impose a monthly management fee on all current accounts. Banks and building societies will be banned from charging people who go beyond their overdraft limit fixed daily or monthly fees from April 2020. But, so the new rules mean banks may be scrambling and building societies may be scrambling to find a way to recoup their costs, and will be likely considering introducing fees for current account holders. When it comes to recouping costs, normally bank or building society would need to review their entire range of banking products, so any perks or fees on accounts will be looked at to see if they can be sustained. They might chop the perks they're currently paying out, or they could add a management fee onto current accounts. So if that becomes the norm, of course, you may be irritated by that, but unfortunately that's how banks banking shake-ups work. Banking is a service and banks do like to make money, i.e. that is their purpose. So the FCA has been urged to probe the way platforms run their best buy lists after what's happened with Neil Woodford. So Neil Woodford ran a investment fund called the Equity Income Fund, and he closed it to investors amid liquidity concerns on June the 3rd. There was £3.7 billion in this equity income fund, but following a sustained period of underperformance, it prompted investors to pull $9 million from the fund every working day in May. And the impact of the trading suspension on Neil Woodford's equity fund is far-reaching. Investors who bought the funds based on often on the recommendations of a best buy list are often left wondering when they will be able to get their investments out or cash out. So it calls into question the appropriateness of best buy lists. The FCA highlighted in a 2017 study that there are concerns around links between funds on best buy lists and platform providers, as well as their performance over the long term. Any clients of mine will know that I'm not a fan of best buy lists, or I don't believe that past performance is a guide to future performance when it comes to fund managers. So, yeah, big issue with this, and, there's some odd transactions. He invested in 4 unquoted shares on the tiny Guernsey Stock Exchange. Did it comply with liquidity regulations? And, why was he allowed to invest in that way? And did investors really understand what they were getting into? And should big players like Hargreaves and plenty of others push these funds without actually having the liability for the recommendation, which I would have if I was a financial planner advisor recommending those funds, which, by the way, I didn't. So, interesting stuff there with that. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about inheritance tax. I know inheritance tax is kind of close to many of our listeners' hearts because they're thinking about it and how they pass their wealth on to other people. One of the tax breaks for inheritance tax breaks has been agricultural and business property relief, and you can avoid paying tax on those assets. And the idea is the legislation for those tax reliefs is to protect small farms and family businesses that might be asset rich but cash poor. But research shows that the vast bulk of these tax breaks are going to those at the top of the tree, I suppose, the very wealthy families, and there's a campaign for a cap on the amount of relief available to estates, over £1 million in a bid to curb the use of the relief. People are buying up agricultural land to gain the inheritance tax relief. Now, one news item, which again might be quite popular, is that vineyards are going to qualify for agricultural property relief. So the value of land using to cultivate vineyards and orchards will be up to 100% free of tax when left as part of an estate. So this recent change has been welcomed by British winemakers. Trade organisation WineGB predicts that 40 million bottles will be produced every year by 2040, and the wine tourism will generate 658 million a year of extra revenue, with a 12-fold increase in employment in the sector. However, winemaking facilities will need to be massively scaled up to sustain the value of this land, currently 75% higher than other types of agricultural land. And co-owner of Simpson's wine estate, Ruth Simpson, warned the problem with England is that there's a lot of vineyards but relatively few wineries. Even a 10 to 20% increase would be an issue, but this year's it's well over 100%. So that's pretty interesting. And just tidying that up at the end, inheritance tax receipts have broken the £5 billion barrier. Between 2010 and 2018, the amount of inheritance tax received by HMRC has more than doubled to £5.2 billion collected last year. And the Office for Budget Responsibility predicts that it may hit £6.9 billion by 2024. So just to recap on the rules, no inheritance tax is due on the first $325,000 of an estate, after which 40% of the value of the estate is charged. There is an introduction of the resident nil rate band, and this relief will increase incrementally over the next few years. So by 2021, couples who are married or in a civil partnership will be able to gift $1 million tax-free. I do urge you to acquaint yourselves with the various reliefs available to minimise inheritance tax. We are running a live event on this with Leicester Aldridge solicitors and expert tax lawyer Kurt Lee in a few weeks' time. If you will put in the show notes a link to that, if you can make it down to pool in Dorset. There's a free event and you can register for free tickets for that and come along and get your inheritance tax questions answered. So that's it for this episode of the Retirement Cafe. So hopefully that's been useful, bringing you up to speed with a few of the things I've been reading and have been interesting in the financial world. So I'm signing out. This is Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Café Podcast with Justin King. To find out more, you can find us online at theretirementcafe.co.uk.